horizon is flat. Hard evidence that the Earth...
Hard evidence. It's hard like a micro penis. Barely there. What is up, heathens? How's everybody doing tonight? I hope that you're all doing well. All right, so tonight we are tackling the flat Earth asshole. That is not just me being all Godless engineering. His name on YouTube is Flat Earth Asshole. So I hope that you guys will appreciate this video. He basically covers a lot of stupid shit, mainly being that he's an asshole. Mainly being gravity doesn't exist. So there's that. The effect of gravity is due to density. The horizon means that the world is flat. And Neil deGrasse Tyson's a big dumb idiot. Now, the flat Earth asshole is definitely an asshole, and he's definitely wrong about all the shit that he spews on his goddamn channel. So this is actually starting about 6 minutes in, because he goes through his entire video there, and he actually shows how the movement of flat earthers is growing. So anybody out there that's like, oh, why are you responding to low-hanging fruit? It's not low-hanging fruit when the low-hanging fruit is gathering by admittedly the thousands at this point, but still, or hundreds rather, it's still growing, and they got people on their side like fucking, basketball players, football players, and just, very, very influential people are swinging to their side. Okay, so he's saying, so if this is how the Ball Earth expert proves gravity.
And by the way, this is called gravity.
Sorry.
Okay, so basically Neil deGrasse Tyson shows how gravity works by dropping a microphone. A very simple experiment you can do that displays the effects of gravity on reality.
Mr. Tyson, but you are flat out wrong. The fact the microphone left your hand and fell back to the earth is a product of its weight and density. The microphone is more dense than the air in which surrounds it, so therefore it fell back to the earth. Much like if you were to jump off of a building, you would fall to the earth because your body weight is more dense than the air in which surrounds it. At the same time, you can take a tiny magnet and overpower this magical, mythological force of gravity. You see all these metal objects that should be falling towards the center of the earth? They're actually being overpowered by a tiny magnet. So the same force of gravity, which holds trillions of gallons of water stuck to a spinning ball, are simply overpowered by a tiny magnet. And at the same time, if you fill a balloon with helium, it will rise. It will overpower the forces of gravity.
Where's gravity now, motherfuckers? He's half-assing science here, and that's really what kind of pseudoscience is. It's half-ass science. Now, weight is because of gravity. Things have weight because of gravity. So, I mean, he's internally inconsistent here with his logic, because if he's admitting something has weight, then he's admitting that gravity has an effect on it. The weight of me here on Earth is vastly different than the weight I would have on the moon or on Saturn or on Uranus. Not on flat Earth assholes Uranus, but on the actual Uranus, I would have a different weight. Gravity is a primary factor in weight, but not only that, he's half-assing science because he's describing how objects will sort of sort themselves out by density, by mass, by weight. Like a ball falls through the air. Well, the ball is heavier than the air around it. It's fluid dynamics. But in order for the ball to fall through the air, gravity has to be present. He jokes on how the gravity can be overpowered by a magnet. Well, gravity is a force. It's a force that pulls, if you will, on like a ball to pull it to the center, right? Well, you can have a greater force via a magnet. Magnetized, or a magnet can attract metal even through objects. Now, how that works is a little bit technical. All you need to know is that magnetism is a force that can be greater than the force of gravity exerted on, say, the paper clips. So the locality of the magnet and how much force it is applying to those metal things is what overpowers the gravity. Gravity does keep the oceans and water and everything here on the Earth, but that's because the force of the gravity is so much stronger to keep those on there. Like, for instance, there's no water on the moon because the gravity on the moon isn't enough to actually keep water on the moon or even an atmosphere, really. So him half-assing science here just displays his own ignorance of what, like, the theory of gravity is, or the law of gravity is. The law of gravity being the mathematical representation of gravity, the theory of gravity being the scientific definition of what gravity is.
This is due to buoyancy. Because the helium in the balloon is lighter in which the air that surrounds it then rises. The helium can overpower the weight of the balloon itself and rise.
Well, yes, if there's enough helium present to overpower the weight of the balloon and the force of fucking gravity. Here's one thing that his theory doesn't explain, and that is acceleration, terminal velocity. That shit right there cannot be explained with his, it's just denser objects moving through a lighter fluid. How can you get to a terminal velocity if it's just, this is heavier? His hypothesis totally fails because it doesn't account for terminal velocity in general. How fast something falls. And his hypothesis just doesn't make fucking sense.
If you were to drop a balloon without any helium in it, it would fall back to the Earth. But once you put helium into the balloon, its contents are lighter than the air in which surrounds it, and it can then overpower the weight of the balloon and cause it to rise.
But you have to have enough helium. Like, has this motherfucker never ever seen a balloon that has lost enough helium to where it just sort of fucking stays there? Or it stays, like, up near the ceiling? Right. When the balloons lose helium, they start to sink. You know why? Because they don't have enough fucking mass inside that's lighter than the air around it in order to push it up. Yeah, and along with the weight of the balloon.
The fact that something falls and the fact that something rises is due to density and buoyancy.
It's not just due to density and buoyancy. Those things, see, this is how he half-asses science. Those are things that are factored into how all that shit operates. But you still have to have gravity. You still have to have an explanation for how fast shit moves up due to their weight. You still have to have explanations for this shit. Your hypothesis here doesn't do any of that at all. Michelle, one of my patrons too, thank you, Michelle, why things have different densities. He's not explaining that, or how those densities affect how fast it moves up.
It is actually very simple. Whereas gravity causes objects to fall towards its supposed center of the Earth, the fact that the center of the Earth has never been proven causes the entire concept of gravity to fall apart.
No, actually, it doesn't. Just because we haven't drilled all the way down to the center of the Earth has no fucking bearing whatsoever on whether or not gravity exists. Okay, the reason why we know what the center of the Earth is made of, why there is a center of the fucking Earth, is because things like earthquakes and seismology and shit, the waves that travel through the ground, right? They operate in very specific ways as described by physics, and we can actually pinpoint where an earthquake happened because of different seismological stations that are positioned everywhere, and due to like how much of the energy is transferred to that particular station, they can accurately predict exactly where the epicenter is. And that's all due to the fact that the center of the earth fucking exists. Otherwise, you would have like this really weird dispersal pattern for any kind of earthquake. Like you would have an earthquake and you would feel the effects around it, but then you would also, for some fucking reason, feel the effects on the very edges of what the fuck ever kind of map he's doing. I don't know why he would think that that would be a thing, but that is exactly how we know it. We also know that these energy waves move through matter different. That's how we can tell what is underneath our feet. Like it's basically like a fishing sonar. You ping stuff and you can tell what is on the floor by how much is reflected back. It's a very simple explanation for it, but you know, these waves move through different materials differently, and they lose energy in very predictable ways and whatnot. So if we know these ways, we can tell what is at the center of the earth. At the center of the earth, we can guarantee that it's mostly iron. Not only by how the energy moves through the earth and out the other side, but also because early asteroids, early comets and whatnot, early formations are primarily made of iron, because iron is one of the most abundant elements in the universe. So with these comets and asteroids and everything like that, primarily made of iron, and with how the Earth formed, we can guarantee that it's mostly iron in the center of the Earth.
As the deepest any humans have ever dug down is in fact only 8 miles deep. Beings we have only dug down 8 miles deep, we have never reached any theoretical core, and therefore the core is just that, simply a theory.
Simply a theory. Fucking hate it when pseudoscientific snobs like this motherfucker right here. It just really grates on me how they use the whole "it's just a theory" motherfucker thing, right? It's ridiculous, and it's a tired ass argument to make.
Thus, if the molten core has never been proven to exist, then that means the center of the Earth has also not been proven to exist. If the concept of gravity is constructed around a supposed attraction toward the unproven center of the Earth, then that means the entire concept of gravity itself is baseless and purely hypothetical.
I mean, that's not what the law of gravity says. I mean, I think that he's just trying to apply it to a spherical Earth here. The law of gravity doesn't say shit is pulled to the center of the Earth. The law of gravity says that, you know, two atoms of different densities, different masses, will be attracted to one another in a very mathematically predictable way. So the larger object is going to have a greater force of gravity than the smaller object. It's how orbits work. It's how shit stays on the Earth and stuff like that. I get where he's going with it, but he's doing it in a very half-ass science way. You know, that just seems to be the theme of his video here, is just, hey, I'm gonna half-ass science. Never been proven. Got it. I mean, his whole hypothesis here about it being a flat Earth and the center of the Earth not existing and all that kind of stuff, you're going to have to be able to explain, you know, the magnetic field that we have around the Earth. You're going to have to explain Van Allen belts. You're going to have to explain seismology. You're going to have to explain how plate tectonics work. Like, you're shitting on the entire idea of a spherical Earth, but you're not offering any explanations to replace everything else that we know based on reality. So you're just living in a dream world at this point.
Earth, throughout its life, even when it formed, it was spinning, and it got a little wider at the equator than it does at the poles. So it's not actually a sphere, it's oblate. And officially it's an oblate spheroid. That's what we call it. But not only that, it's slightly wider below the equator than above the equator.
A little chubbier.
A little chubbier.
Yeah.
Chubby's a good way. It's like pear-shaped. 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 Pear-shaped.
Okay, before he starts in on this, he says that it's pear-shaped in that it's wider at the bottom than it is at the top. It doesn't mean that it's literally a fucking pear. No, there's not a stem at the top of the Earth. What?
North Pole.
The North Pole? No, no. North Pole is a stem. If you actually look at like high def images of the Earth, primarily taken from Japan, if you get their high def images of the Earth and you actually size it up properly, the ratio of height to width matches what we see in the diameter of the Earth that we have physically fucking measured. I mean, this is a complex thing using basically just geometry of figuring this shit out. So I don't know why you got to make fun of it like this. It just shows that you're ignorant of mathematics, science. He's void of intellect. He is.
Really, Neil? Pear-shaped, huh? Pear-shaped. Bulging. I don't see any bulges. I don't see any pear-shapedness, do you? In fact, if you were to measure each one of these circles, you would see that they are perfect circles. No bulging, no oblateness, no pear-shapedness whatsoever. In fact, just about all the images that I've ever seen were perfectly round circles, Neil. The only one who ever brought up the Earth being anything other than a sphere.
Nope, not true. I'm going to go ahead and stop him right here before he even goes farther. That's not true. Isaac Newton actually predicted that the Earth is actually an oblate spheroid before we could even really detect it or measure it. And it's primarily because of his, invention of fucking calculus and shit that he was able to do this. I'm not saying that calculus is the way that we know that or anything like that. I'm just saying that he's a smart motherfucker. The whole perfect sphere thing, I think, is what trips up a lot of flat earthers, is that they think that the Earth is just this perfect sphere. When you take a perfect sphere and you apply things like where the fucking horizon is, gravity even, because, gravity actually varies all over the Earth, because the Earth isn't one singular density throughout the entire thing. Like it's dense in various places. So actually, gravity does change in different places on the Earth. The mean of it, though, is 9.8 meters per second squared. That is the average of everywhere. But I mean, if you just simply look up gravity, you can see how it changes in different places of the Earth. Some places it's a little bit more, some other places it's a little bit less. But I mean, that is what we would expect to see. In reality, you never see anything work out perfectly smooth in reality. It's not going to be that way.
The only person I've ever heard call the Earth a pear or an oblate spheroid was Neil deGrasse Tyson. Before that, no one ever said that in my whole life that I had.
I like how he clarifies that. Nobody in my whole life has ever fucking said that. Oh, okay. You're not wrong. Well, I mean, I'm sure people were saying it, but I'm guessing you never heard it. That doesn't mean that it's not fucking fact, buddy.
Ever heard. Until Neil said it. Funny thing is, when I go to Google Earth, it's a perfect circle too. So where does this bulging actually begin and end?
It begins at the fucking equator and at the very bottom, like past the equator, it's fatter than it is at the fucking top of the fucking world. And no, you're not going to see this on Google Earth. It's too small of a difference to notice it with the fucking naked eye. You could do exact measurements in pixels if you wanted to, but you're not going to see it with your naked fucking eye. Of course, all of these people expect to see shit just with their naked eye. Like like the bend in or the curve, like from 100,000 feet or whatnot, not even 100,000 feet at fucking ground level, they expect to see a curve with their naked fucking eye.
Does it take place? Does it only take place on the magical pear in your mind, Neil? Because none of the images that we've been shown have any oblateness or bulging or pear-shapedness whatsoever. So maybe you should get your eyes checked, Neely boy.
I like how he's got the world spinning on his middle finger. I will say that's pretty clever right there.
How do we know the Earth is not flat?
We don't. It's flat.
Okay. Glad we established
that.
God damn, this guy just looks like an asshole. I mean, he's got the shit-eating grin and the aviators and everything. I mean, this is me to a T whenever I want to be an asshole.
Yeah, I see what you did there. You told everybody the truth. You know it's flat. I know it's flat. He asked you if it's flat, and you told him it's flat. Now you're going to do that thing where you say you're just kidding and that the Earth is actually round because you're a professional actor. But you and I both know it's flat. And
no, he's a professional fucking scientist. I don't know what the fuck you are other than an idiot on YouTube. He's a professional fucking scientist. He's not an actor. I mean, maybe he does act occasionally, but that's not his primary, job.
that's why you just told everybody the truth in plain sight that it's flat. Because it's flat.
So, no, here it is. If you are small, as we are as humans, and that is the entirety of and that is the source of your understanding of the world in which you live, then of course the world looks flat. That's not any different from being a child watching television and is presuming that the people you see on TV know you.
They don't know me.
Well, if you're a little child, you think they do know you, because you are the center of your own universe.
That last statement fell about a mile short of making any sense whatsoever, Mr. Tyson. Now,
actually, no, it makes a lot of sense, because flat earthers feel like when they're on the ground and they're looking out at the earth or whatnot, they can't grasp how small they are in comparison with the earth, and how in your own field of vision it's going to seem very flat to you. And that's exactly what Neil deGrasse Tyson was trying to convey, was that it's just like a child watching TV who thinks that the entire world is about him and that the people on the TV are talking directly to him. These people think that the entire earth is centered around them, and so they take what they see without taking into context how small they are in relevance to the entire fucking world.
when we use our senses that we were created with, we can see that the horizon is horizontal. Think of that. Horizon. Horizontal. They don't call it the curve.
Okay, this is an etymological fallacy. I mean, you can't just say, "Oh, horizon, horizontal." That's that proves that the Earth is flat right there, because horizon, horizontal. I mean, that's not even like the etymology of the word. It does come from like Latin horizon and whatnot, but it doesn't mean like flat. It just means where the sky meets the earth, or where you perceive the sky to meet the earth. Fallacy, Bell! So it's an etymological fallacy because he's trying to suggest that it's always been that way. Everybody's always known it to be that way.
And do they? That's because no matter...
Is it just me, or can anybody else see like the curve? Like it's a slight curve on this one. Like, I mean, it's nothing that you can really like just look at and instantly know that there's a curve there. But I mean, you can see a curve in this picture. I mean, like I said, it's a slight curve.
No matter how high you go, the horizon is always flat and horizontal, and it rises with you to your eye level. This would be impossible if the Earth was a sphere or an oblate spheroid or a pear. Because if the Earth was indeed a sphere, an oblate spheroid, or in your case, a pear, that means as you gained altitude, you would have to look downward in order to see the horizon. However, this does not match our everyday experiences. If we were to get in a hot air balloon together, Neil, and we were to go up there, the horizon would be flat and level.
Okay, it would seem that way to the naked eye. To the naked eye, it would seem that way. Also, for your little simple horizon test over here, basically what I see is that you've got two sizes for like your reference point here. You've got one gigantic goddamn Godzilla size on the left, and then you've got a normal human size on the right there. So, I mean, it feels like you're trying to tell me that the human size is showing a flat Earth, while the Godzilla fucking size over there, raising up above the Earth, is a spherical Earth would produce. The one on the left, you would have to be so big in order for that thing to be a real simulation that you would have to be huge. So I don't. This is not proving anything. You just have bad, like, you don't have equal reference points here.
Hey, speaking of level, have you ever been to the ocean, the sea? They call it sea level for a reason. They don't say sea curve, do they?
They don't say sea curve. It's a sea level. For one thing, sea level always changes because it's more meant for, like, altitude and elevation and shit, right? It's just a general reference point that people use, and it's different everywhere that you go on the Earth. Like, the mean sea level for a particular location is dependent upon the low tide and the high tide. You can't just say it's not a sea curve out there. It's sea level. That means that the Earth is flat. That just makes you sound retarded.
In fact, it doesn't matter whether you're at sea level or on top of Mount Everest.
You know what I love about this particular part right here is that the Mount Everest part, you can see a tiny bit of a curve. Like, if you look really close, at the very middle, you can see where the horizon is. But as you get farther out, the horizon gets farther away from the red line. Like, you can see it in the picture. I mean, it's small, but it's there.
Whether you're looking out the window of an airplane, or if you send up a balloon 100,000 feet above the Earth, that...
Yeah, and you can see the curve in this one. I mean, granted, he's got a lot of shit in the way as far as atmosphere goes, but I mean, you can see how it's bending a little bit. I mean, it's not as straight as he wants to make it out to be right there. I mean, you can see the curve in this just because you draw a red line in a straight red line on an image doesn't make you correct about the fucking curve. I mean, if you just look like right above his red line there, you can see how the left side, like where the atmosphere is and everything like that, the blue, you can see how it's lower over here than it is on the right side of the image. Like,
is not curving in any way. Not the same as a child thinking they know someone on TV. Oh, and look, what's that? That's a hot spot, folks, on top of the clouds made by the sun. That means the sun is very close, not 93 million miles away. But we'll get into that later.
It's not a hot spot. It's light being reflected or refracted off of the atmosphere. Off of the clouds. Like, it's just light reflection. Like, light is literally bouncing off of the fucking clouds and coming at you. No, the sun is most definitely 93 million miles away. You can look out into the universe and see other suns and shit and see how big they fucking are. Our sun is not special in that way. Thank you, heathens, for joining me today. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to leave those comments down below. Correct me if I said anything wrong. And I guess I will see you heathens later. Don't forget to stand up and use your voice, because this whole flat earth thing is a lot bigger than a lot of people think. Bye, heathens.